It has been said that death is not the greatest of evils. Rather, it is to wish to die when one cannot. Imagine you are unable to die, never once aging for the rest of time. Sounds like it would be pretty neat, right? Everybody wants to live forever, but we rarely ever think about how traumatic it would be to achieve immortality. Picture all those future historical events you would live through, but think of everyone you would lose as well. All those loved ones that would grow old and pass away while you remain still, staying exactly the same forever, frozen. If you had a finite memory, it would be even worse. No matter who you lost, after centuries you would eventually forget them too. Their smiles, their laughs, every detail of them would be gone from you as you carry on living endlessly. Immortality would likely be a very lonely path, and nobody is a better example of that than SCP-1440, otherwise known as the Old Man from Nowhere. As the nickname describes, SCP-1440 appears, at least at first glance, to be a man of unknown age and ethnicity. SCP-1440 is currently uncontained, but also is not considered hostile or actively evil by the SCP Foundation. Mostly he spends his days wandering the wilderness on his own. On the few instances he has crossed paths with the Foundation, when questioned about his name or where he was born, the old man will refuse to answer. It is not clear if this is because he does not want to divulge personal information about his origins, or if he simply doesn't have answers to those questions. Eyewitness accounts have described the Old Man from Nowhere as looking like an elderly gentleman, approximately 80 years old. However, descriptions of him have not changed at all in the 50 years since SCP-1440's existence was first brought to the Foundation's attention, with him always being described as looking the same way without changing. And there's only one conclusion we can land on from there. SCP-1440 does not age. So you may be wondering, is that it? Is SCP-1440 just an immortal wanderer, a rambling old man who is destined to keep on living long after all of us are dead? Not quite. In fact, that's barely the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Each time that the Old Man from Nowhere comes into contact with a human population, or anything man-made at all, the rest of his anomalous nature is revealed. Not instantly, since he has to remain in contact with a population and stay close to them for a few days. Only then does this adverse effect on humanity and everything connected to it become more apparent. Should SCP-1440 dwell too close to people and man-made structures for any extended period of time, massively destructive events will begin to occur nearby. These events will continue to increase in size and scale, until everything in the immediate vicinity of the Old Man is dead and destroyed. Humans, buildings, vehicles, there is nothing left around him but total and utter devastation. All that survives is SCP-1440 himself, along with the clothes on his back, a sack he carries over one shoulder, a pack of playing cards, and the small glass that he keeps on his person at all times. Even though he causes disaster on a horrendous scale wherever he goes, SCP-1440 is not actively evil. The Old Man is fully aware of the effect he has when stationed too close to civilization for too long, but he doesn't create these destructive events by choice or out of malice for human beings. Death just seems to follow him, whether he wants it to or not. And it is for exactly this reason that he chooses a life of solitude, wandering from place to place with the intention of avoiding human contact for as long as he possibly can. Or at least, that is his intention. But SCP-1440 is unable to stay away for too long. The Old Man from Nowhere suffers from a compulsion to travel in a strange, highly complicated pattern of movement, and despite their best efforts, the researchers of the SCP Foundation have been, thus far, unable to properly analyze this pattern. SCP-1440 literally cannot stop himself. He can't even provide any useful information about why he feels so compelled to travel in such a way, most likely because he is not even aware of it happening. But whatever the reason may be, the Old Man from Nowhere will inevitably travel in his unpredictable patterns that always lead him towards civilization, where he will come into contact with people and ultimately cause their doom. It is due to his unintentional yet highly destructive capabilities that SCP-1440 remains uncontained by the SCP Foundation to this day. All previous attempts to contain him have resulted in catastrophic losses for the Foundation, both in resources and lives of personnel. Even so, the old man is far from hostile and shows no contempt towards human beings. He will even willingly and without resistance allow himself to be captured and subdued whenever the Foundation have attempted to contain him, though he seems to know that it's only a matter of time before everything around him is destroyed and he's forced to embark on his wandering path once again. SCP-1440 was first brought to the attention of the SCP Foundation over 50 years ago. During a commute to work, one of the Foundation's research staff was approached by an old man who appeared to be in his 80s and was asking for her help. When she asked what he needed help with, the man told her that he hoped that the SCP Foundation would be able to destroy him. Not only had he somehow learned the identity of this Foundation doctor and tracked her down, but SCP-1440 had sought out the Foundation so that they could bring an end to his immortal existence permanently. The Foundation had the old man from nowhere brought in for questioning at one of their secret facilities, a grave mistake. Before they could even attempt to theorize a way to terminate SCP-1440 as he requested, the SCP Foundation site was completely obliterated. Over 100 personnel were killed, and the loss of the facility also destroyed 6 safe and Euclid Class SCP objects. Ever since then, any attempt to contain the old man from nowhere has ended in much the same way, with hundreds dead and millions of dollars worth of property destruction. Until they have a surefire way of keeping SCP-1440 and his destructive power contained, their best option is to focus on observing him from a safe distance and trying to predict his travel pattern to steer him away from civilians. But still, the Foundation has persevered with capturing SCP-1440, even if only for brief periods of time. During this time, they have conducted numerous interviews, each time learning more and more about the aloof, elusive immortal and his various exploits over the centuries. Few records of these interviews have managed to survive the destructive power of the old man from nowhere's anomalous abilities. However, there exists one transcript, an interview from the Foundation's 4th attempt to contain SCP-1440 that was logged and saved to a remote server off-site. Before the interview had begun, SCP-1440's arrival to the area had already started to cause adverse effects of the Foundation staff. A number of personnel had reported experiencing severe headaches and nausea. Over the 2 days that followed, many of the site's water purification filters were found to be malfunctioning. Shortly after, a hangar at the site collapsed, killing several Foundation airmen. Additionally, a member of research personnel was found to have suffered a total collapse of both kidneys and lungs simultaneously, all despite having been in perfect physical health. SCP-1440, complying with the Foundation as he had before, sat down with the doctor to commence the interview. The old man was quick to praise the SCP Foundation for their continued efforts to capture and contain him, even though the previous 3 times had all ended catastrophically. He stated that he now knew the Foundation could not help him bring an end to his immortality, and that it was in their best interests to release him. SCP-1440 then warned the doctor that the first brother was standing behind them. During previous interviews, the old man from nowhere had made similar allusions to a group of brothers, 3 of them to be precise. This time he expanded a little on who these brothers were.
3, aye, different, but one and the same. All cruel, all vengeful, all capable of holding a grudge for a long time. They are the cause of my misfortune, and therefore the cause of yours.
It was at that moment that SCP-1440 seemed to notice something standing behind the doctor interviewing him, and warned that the second brother had now joined the first. He claimed that time was running out, and that the Foundation needed to release him for their own safety before it was too late. The doctor politely refused and inquired about the third brother. SCP-1440 seemed to describe an elusive figure who never appeared to him, but the old man from nowhere seemed to imply that one glimpse of this mysterious third brother would set him free. Perhaps he meant by curing his tortured immortality, or at least making it safe for SCP-1440 to be around people without causing their destruction.
The third never appears. In that he is crueler than both his brothers, for he knows his appearance is the only thing that will set me free. I have spent time untold searching for him, trying to return his prize and those I won from his brothers, but to no avail.
SCP-1440 remarked that the second brother had his hands on the doctor's shoulders. taking that as an omen of doom and the doctor's imminent death. The old man offered one final warning.
Should you choose to challenge death to a game of cards for your life, there is one thing you must never do: win.
At that precise moment, the nuclear device kept on site as a failsafe was activated, bypassing all security protocols and failsafes. The entire Foundation facility was destroyed, killing every single member of personnel in a quick instant of atomic obliteration. A week later, a figure was spotted over 3,000 kilometers away from the blast site. An old man who had suffered no apparent damage from the explosion or the fallout. It seems though his vague allusion to three brothers and card games that SCP-1440 gained his immortality from death itself, or rather a group of entities known as the Brothers' Death, although they have been referred to as countless names by cultures past and present across the world. Old Gods, the All-Death, Yulu, Yama, Siddhigarba. These three brothers are a lot more than just a trio of Grim Reapers collecting the souls of the dead. They are in fact responsible for the creation of everything that exists as we know it, governing all of reality and deciding when each part of it must come to its unavoidable end. It would appear that by challenging the brothers' death to a card game, SCP-1440 was cursed with his eternal lifespan, while also causing the deaths of thousands without choice or consent. The items that the old man carries are even the prizes of the brothers' death, won during the same card game. While limited in their uses, they are extremely powerful and can reduce the brothers' influence on the mortal coil. The glass cup holds the elixir of life, a single drop capable of curing the sickest men and saving them from the grip of death. The playing cards the old man keeps are the cards of fate, holding the power to challenge death's authority and alter fate, preventing wars, deaths, and calamities. Finally, the sack of all death, able to carry anything within it, including unspeakable catastrophes and even death itself. As human populations spread further into previously uninhabited areas, it's becoming harder for SCP-1440 to avoid contact with people. Drawn to them by his unstoppable compulsion, he continues to live out century after century spent causing destruction and death wherever he wanders to. Just pray that the old man never finds his way to your town. Now go check out SCP-1879 Indoor Salesman and SCP-2852 Sadistic Madman Party Crasher Cousin Johnny for more strange men you really don't want to run into.